I never would have thought it would take me, I think it was 5 years to get back to second stage. It's very humbling when I think about that. Luckily, I was able to finally get back and make it through last year.
Today we were joined by Ashton and Horne. Ashton played college golf at Belmont where he had 6 wins, and after he graduated in 2016, he went on to play professional golf and has continued playing since then. During the first 5 of those 6 years, Ashton had minimal status on any tour, playing mostly on the Canadian Tour. Most recently, Ashton locked up status on the Corn Ferry Tour during the Utah Championship, as you'll hear about more in the episode. Beyond that, Cooper and I are both good friends with Ashton Van Horn, and we've both been fired as caddies for him. So we hope you appreciate the stories and insights that he provides today. We appreciate you taking the time to join us, Ashton. Tell us just a little bit about your background. We know you play on the Corn Ferry Tour now. You locked up status this year, and it was a long road to get us there. So, kind of start from the beginning how you even got into golf.
Yeah, kind of got a late start to the game. Grew up playing a lot of baseball. Um, Kind of in high school, kind of transitioned into golf. I guess my freshman year, I tried out and made the JV golf team, and just kind of really like the independent nature of it. Could kind of do it my way, kind of practice how I wanted, and just really love the independence. For somebody who's playing professionally, I feel like that's a pretty late start to get going at 14, 15. Just really enjoyed it. Just enjoyed that I could do it my own way and go out there and compete. Yeah.
So you went on and played at Belmont in college and then played professionally. At what point in time though did you figure out that hey, like I want to play this at a higher level? And then what point in time did you figure out, hey, I can play this at a higher level?
Yeah, so I mean, growing up, I played a lot of baseball, and I always dreamed to play in the major leagues. And when I started playing golf, the goal just shifted to PGA Tour. Even before I had any realistic, chance of doing that, that was my goal. And going to Belmont, I feel like I progressed every year and learned a lot how to compete, how to play at a little bit higher level. And I knew that leaving Belmont, I still had a ways to go, but that I definitely had the game and the upside if I kept working and did the right things that I could make that happen.
Yeah, going to Belmont, you had I think 6 wins there, if I'm not mistaken. And as everybody knows, no matter like what level you are in college, essentially, like winning a tournament is hard, and especially getting 6 wins in college is hard. There's a lot of guys out there who play still who do not have wins in college, but must have been at least like to yourself a pretty good sign that things were working okay because you're winning and you're in. If you weren't winning, you're also having a lot of close calls with winning. What was it like figuring out how to win in college?
College is great for me. I feel like I learned a lot about winning, but I attribute being able to win 6 times in college a lot to my junior golf career. I wasn't really playing in a lot of big tournaments. I was focused more on high school matches, on high school tournaments, on smaller spring and fall events. And those didn't necessarily have the best competition. And I felt like I could go out there and compete. And even when I wasn't the best player yet, that I could win. So I kind of, maybe uniquely to some other guys, learned to win before I was really a great player. And I feel like that just carried over to college. I got into a really good environment with some great structure, great coach, Scott Flynn at Belmont, and had some teammates that pushed me hard. And I just feel like you know those two kind of things, the structure and good coaching really combined with that competitive nature that I had. Yeah, like you said, I won 6 times, but I feel like I was in contention, you know, as much, if not more than the amount of times that I won. I finished second or third. I think, I really enjoyed, competing and getting in there. And there's a lot of, like you said, really good players, even at the level that I played at Belmont. in the Ohio Valley Conference at the time. A lot of really good players that only would win one or two times, and a lot of guys that have gone on to have really successful pro careers. So, I think I just attribute that, my junior golf career, being able to compete and learn how to win at a young age.
So you obviously had a really good college career, and after college, you turned pro immediately. And if I'm not mistaken, you won your first professional tournament, the Kentucky Open. What allowed you to have, that early success as a pro?
I think I was just really, really excited when I turned pro. Really, my game was in a great place, and just, had a lot of, high hopes, and was working hard, and my game was in a great place. Yeah, I won the Kentucky Open in my first event, and that was kind of like a confirmation, maybe, to my confidence that I could play. We have got a lot of great players in the state of Kentucky. I beat some really great players that week. Guys that have had a lot of success at some pretty high levels in this game. And yeah, that was just a big kind of confidence boost for me going forward. Now I had a lot of work to do, and I found out shortly after, how high the bar really was at the pro level, and it took me a handful of years, of struggling and grinding it out to really, start to, feel like I could compete at the pro level like I was able to in college. But to win that event early on just yeah, it gave me a ton of confidence and just confirmation that me pursuing professional golf was something worthwhile and something that I could be successful in.
Yeah, so I'd like to kind of go through what happened after that. You went to Q school,
Hmm.
you got through first stage, and then you missed by a little bit at second stage.
Hmm.
And go through kind of the emotions of missing at Q school that first time
Hmm.
and what you started to do after that tournament wise.
Yeah, I remember I played really well at first stage in Alabama at a tough golf course in Dothan. I believe I finished maybe third place and kind of just didn't know any better. Just was playing good, went in there and shot four really good rounds. And young and dumb sometimes is a good thing in this game. I didn't know any better, but and then I go to second stage. I remember I open up on maybe 8 or 9 under through 2 rounds, and it's like, well, you know, I would say I got ahead of myself, but I really it was really coming easy to me. And I remember I shot two over at TPC Craig Ranch in Dallas in the third round, and I went from ninth to 54th with two over. And that was maybe one of the most shocking days of my life because it was like it's only, yeah, I played poorly, but I was four inside the number. Now I'm seven outside the number. It's like it was, and that might be a little exaggeration, but it was such a shock. And I went out the last round. I literally needed like a 63 to get through, and I wasn't able to do it. But yeah, I never would have thought it would take me. I think it was 5 years to get back to second stage. That's it's very humbling when I think about that. It was a lot of trials and tribulations. In between there, there's a lot less. I talked about the structure in college golf that really helped me, and I now didn't have that in pro golf. I was on my own more, and that presents a lot more challenges. And at times I didn't handle them well and wasn't prepared for situations, and it really, put me behind. I feel like over time, just kind of learned from my mistakes and stuck with it, and was able to get back. And big thing for me is I never lost the belief that I could do it. I just kept putting in the work, and had people around me that continued to believe in me and support me. Luckily, I was able to finally get back and make it through last year.
Yeah, it's been a very cool story to watch, at least from my perspective, and for a lot of us I know. We've known it was possible. It's just one of those things when you realize how much of a grind it is. I mean, Cooper already, when he was playing pro, was like, I don't think I want to do this. And then you're out on Corn Ferry last year, and he's caddying for you. He's like, yeah, this is definitely not the life I want to live. And Corn Ferry is essentially like right there. I mean, a lot of guys want to that's a huge place to be and a nice pedestal to be on. You get a lot more of that structure that you talk about. You get a lot more stability, and all that to say is just it's a hard life to live, I know. And you and I have talked about the Kentucky Open. It was nice to win that first event, but and it boosted your confidence. In the same way, you've also said to me that, it was kind of a trap for me because I thought, oh, like I got it. Like I'm here. I've arrived. This isn't any different. And then you come out, and for 5 years in a row, essentially, you get caught with haymaker after haymaker after haymaker, and you see improvement, you see growth, but it's not exact. It doesn't exactly ever feel that way once you realize how hard it is to get there. So after you missed at Q school following that win, kind of walk us through what that path was like, what you were thinking about as you're like, okay, now I gotta get back out there. Like you gotta like if you get through Q school, okay, fine, Danny, sweet, you got something to play in, like what your schedule looks like. But if you don't know what your schedule looks like, which is what happens when you don't make it through, then you got to be like, okay,
Mhm.
am I going to go play Latin America? Am I going to go play Canada? And then if you don't get through one of those, then all of a sudden it's the same story. Like, all right, I got to go. Like, I got to scrounge together a schedule. It's not put together for me. I got to find some G pros. I got to find some swing thoughts. I got to find anything that
Mhm.
I can play in and keep myself going. You got to go down to Florida, play those Florida events. They got a nice little winter schedule down there. What was the mindset following that, and how did you try to create some sort of order out of the chaos that kind of arises there?
Yeah, I think, when you're kind of, laying that out for me, I really feel like and have come to believe that, everything happens for a reason. It would have been incredible for me to have gotten through that first year, but it wasn't meant to be. There's a lot of things I still needed to learn to improve on, to understand better, and so yeah, I kind of had to learn those things the hard way. Then yeah, like you said, trying to put that together a schedule. I mean, I was kind of set out into the open on my own. That's kind of how I felt in a way. I had some people giving me some good advice, but it's just it's still tough. You're on your own. Like I said, you're not on a team anymore. Your coaches aren't there. Your parents aren't there. Your teammates aren't there. You just got to go figure it out. And I feel like I did a good job playing a good amount of tournaments, like you said, down in Florida a lot. Number of the tours down there, and in a way, I feel like I just kind of got lost in the fray of players. There was some really talented players who maybe had been around for a while who honestly were very tough to beat. Very tough to beat at some of these events, and then you had some guys who were maybe didn't take it as seriously, who were just kind of enjoying the ride, and maybe didn't believe that they could make it or didn't really put the work in. So there was a big disparity in the mini tour scene of guys and the dynamic. And I feel like I was very much kind of caught in between there. Like I said, I still had a lot to learn and a lot to focus on and a lot to improve on, and it just took time. And I definitely fell into some bad habits. It's all those things you're taught growing up. The fundamentals and how to approach the game. It's easy for those things to start slipping when somebody's not there watching you, monitoring you, paying attention to you, and keeping an eye out for you that you're doing the right things. So definitely, even though I was playing a lot, I just didn't. I kind of feel like my progress was kind of stunted a little bit just because I didn't maintain and keep up those good habits that I was taught.
In college and amateur golf, you feel pressure to, maybe win a tournament and go up in the rankings or get into a bigger tournament or something. It's a lot different than a mini tour event where you're putting up, $1,000, $2,000.
Hmm.
And if you don't go shoot 66 both days, then, you might not make your money back.
Hmm.
And I've seen so many people get lost in focusing on that money part of it. But I've watched you throughout your career just kind of stay the course and not focus on that short term, oh, I lost this big entry fee here.
Hmm.
I won this little amount of money here.
Hmm.
You're just focused on your own game and trying to be the best golfer you can be.
Hmm.
Can you talk about, maybe watching people get lost in that mindset
Hmm.
during the mini tour events, and how you had this consistent mindset of just being the best you can be?
Yeah, of course. I was told, going into the pro game, not to focus on the money, not to follow the money, to play events that I felt like would better prepare me and help me get better. And I felt like that was great advice. And I always try to remind myself of that because there were guys that, they only focused on the money, and they might go play maybe easier events, or they might handpick their events to try to play, where they felt like they got the best bang for their buck. And what I started to realize was those weren't really the guys taking the next step, making jumps to the next level. Those guys were kind of just there year after year, guys just trying to pay the bills. And the financial side is tricky in pro golf. It's a very, kind of taboo, sensitive subject with guys. We don't talk about it much. Everybody's situation is different, but it certainly is important to everybody. But I just always try to remember that advice to play events and to go about it in terms of getting better and to focus on getting better and preparing for Q school at the end of the year rather than trying to make a little bit of money here and there. And one thing, Coach Flynn at Belmont always told me was, good golf takes care of everything. You keep doing the right things, you keep playing good golf, and it's gonna kind of take care of the financial side hopefully at some point.
And when it comes to that financial side, as you said, like everybody has different situations, so it's hard for them to necessarily all. Everybody has to look at things not different as far as like you want to focus on golf because good golf does fix everything, but as far as what they're playing in, what their setup
Hmm.
is, sometimes people have to live at home and have to go to the golf course every day. Sometimes they have to do what it takes to make it there, and a lot of times that's not necessarily even reflective of the skill they have or anything like that. That's just the circumstances of life, which is uh, kind of the beautiful thing about life is we all have something different going on and we all have different opportunities. When it came to you finishing up Q school, being like, okay, I don't really have anywhere to go as far as like tour wise, you went down to Orlando and you found a golf course down there. Talk us through just about specifically like when people are looking to find somewhere to play golf at and to play a golf course, there's lots of options out there and lots of places that'll take on professional golfers at discounted rates. As far as actually evaluating, though, beyond just the discounts that sometimes get given or the memberships or anything of that nature, evaluating, hey, here's what I was looking for in a practice facility. Here's what I was looking for in a course. How did you end up down there? And tell us more about the courses you've been at down there.
Yeah, I've been at a bunch of different places over the years. I've generally tried to have a plan, before I head down. Where am I going to live, where am I going to play. I think my first year I just kind of, I think I played at Orange County National and the Disney courses in Orlando. It was just kind of, just doing whatever I felt like I could. Just kind of didn't know the landscape very well. Didn't know a lot of guys in the pro game yet to be able to reach out and ask, hey, where are you guys playing? Where's a good spot to go? And I remember the next year I joined at Grand Cypress for the year, and that was a much better environment, a lot of really good players there. More of like an all-inclusive deal where I, could get a card every day, I could play every day. But the advice I always tell to guys is just, find something that works for you. If you have to, work a couple days to pay for it, you got to make it happen. If you can afford to join somewhere and that seems like a good fit for you, go ahead and do that. But you just got to make it work for you. And for me, almost every year has been a little bit different. I've never really wanted to put up a down payment on a membership because I just don't know what the next year is going to look like. I've always kept it just a little, go year by year. And now being in Jacksonville at TPC is just it's just so great. It's one of the best places you could be. But yeah, it's a tricky deal. When guys ask me for advice on that, I try to really listen to their situation and their setup and try to look at it from their unique point of view or perspective because everybody is looking for and can maybe needs something different. Everybody's situation is a little bit different. So like the financial side I mentioned, it's everybody's dealing with it. You just gotta, figure out something that works for you.
Now, you go down to Florida every winter, I guess, except for the COVID year. I think you stayed in Kentucky. But during the summers, I believe you played on the Canadian tour 3 years.
Mhm,
Talk about, first of all, the Q school, because it's very different. The Q school is in Florida
mhm,
for a tour that's going to be played in Canada. Talk about getting through Q school for that and then playing that tour the summer and
mhm.
how that helped you prepare for being on the Corn Ferry tour.
Yeah, I remember the first year. I think it was 2018. I got status in Canada, and that was a big step for me. I think that was 2 years out of college for me. I didn't do Canada or Latin tour my first full year as a pro, so that was my first year doing any of the sanctioned tours. Yeah, I learned a lot that summer. The and I didn't have a ton of success my first season, but I learned a lot. I was around a lot of really good players, and I remember when I went back the next year, I was far more prepared. Just from how much I had learned, and my level of play really improved just from being in that good environment. And I tell people now, inside the ropes, a Canadian Tour event feels like a Corn Ferry event. There's not as many people there watching, and there's not as much going on, obviously, but it let me experience a 72 hole structure, 72 hole events, and got me, got some of that structure back for me. And I feel like that was a good time for me. It felt like my game started to kind of turn around a little bit.
You said it got you used to that structure, but it also got you used to having to travel around a lot because Canada might be one country, but those events are pretty spread out from each other, and
Hmm.
you'll end up flying around different
Hmm.
places, driving around different places. Walk us through as far as the travel side goes, what it was like having to coordinate your own travel. I mean, you still have to do that when you're going through that late season stretch. It was, you know, fly to Omaha, rent a car from here, take it there, go to Illinois, all that. Come back, drive up to
Hmm.
Ohio.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes on managing that, and that kind of, I imagine, was your first taste of having to kind of adapt a schedule
Hmm.
around adapt your travel plans around a schedule, whereas before you kind of could build your schedule. You could play this tournament here, this
Hmm.
tournament there, and it could all be maybe just located in the southeast.
Hmm.
There's people's houses you can stay at, all that kind of easier stuff. When you're in Canada, there isn't that. So what was that like, and what did you learn through that?
Yeah, like you said, it's a whole nother element now with the travel. When you're playing junior golf or college golf, it's you play an event, then you have a week off, or you're playing your summer schedule. You can kind of build it, and you can kind of gear up for events. You can, hey, let me make sure I see my coach a couple times. Let me make sure I'm feeling good going into this event. Yeah, at that level in pro golf, there's no more of that. You're thrown into the fire, and you're there for 4 or 5 straight weeks, and you're in a new city every week. And on the Canadian tour, it's you might be in a city or a town that you've never heard of. And that was that was a big learning curve. Luckily, I had some buddies up there that really helped me with that and had played that tour before. But yeah, I remember you flying around. It's like, well, I guess this is what we're doing. Not really knowing what's going on, and you just kind of go with the flow and make it work. But yeah, that was a whole nother element that I got to experience there playing in Canada. But I always say to guys, if you can get out and play the Latin tour or the Canadian tour and travel a little bit, it's going to pay off because when you get to the Corn Ferry level, you're traveling every week. You're going across the country. We're playing 5 events outside of the country this year. That's all gonna, that's valuable experience that I got, early on. So I think that was really important for my development.
We talk about how you're on the Corn Ferry Tour now, and I know that most people don't know your story of how you got there because we've kind of alluded to it, but it's okay. First year seems pretty good, Miss Q school, 2 years of no status anywhere. Then you get on Canada, and again, don't really flourish might not be the right word, but don't really get to reap the rewards of all the hard work you're putting in. You feel improvement, you see improvement, but it doesn't necessarily happen there. And then finally, we get to like last year. you get to Q school, and 2020 was just a weird year anyway, as far as like finding places to play, getting stuff done, etc. Last year, you get to Q school. Tell us about Q school last year, kind of what happened, and then how you ended up getting some status this year, and then how you locked in status later.
Yeah, I think if you go back and kind of keep filling in my timeline here, in 2020, I had to go back to Canadian Q school, and I played awful. I really it was in March. It was in Mission Inn and outside of Orlando, and it's some of the worst golf I've ever played. And my game was really terrible. And that was right when COVID was starting, and the rest of the season kind of was just a wash. And it was kind of a real turning point for me. I was at a pretty low spot in my game, and there was nothing to play in. So it really came down to what did I want to do? Was I gonna, crawl out of this hole because I had a pretty unique opportunity? There was no tournaments. There wasn't going to be any Q school. I really had about 18 months to turn it around. And I rededicated myself, and I felt like from that day after that Q school forward, every single day I put my best foot forward, and maybe at times I wasn't doing that before that, and I feel like I just, one day at a time, I kind of dug myself out of that hole. And I got to Q school in 2021, and I hadn't done Q school in 3 years. Starting first stage, I had that mentality of I've been working for this for 3 years. I'm ready for it. I'm prepared, and this is my year to get through. And played really well at first stage. Got through by a few shots. Had a pretty good cushion on the final day. I played well, and then second stage. Second stage was tough. It was one of those weeks where I was playing really well, but nothing was coming easy. And that's golf a lot of times. That's what it's about. And I was a little bit behind going to the final day, and just found a way to get to that last hole with the chance to make a putt to hopefully get through. And like was telling myself through the whole process, I got one shot here. I've been working for 3 years, and I was able to get through, make a big putt on the final hole, and just again, go back to like the Kentucky Open win. It was kind of like another big step for me as a confirmation that you know oh, this is the right thing for me to be doing. I'm on the right path. Felt like I took a big step forward. So that was a huge step for me to get Corn Ferry status. But it kind of hit me hard the next month. I went to final stage and really played poorly, like really poorly. Yeah, what are we doing here?
Yeah, you were a few shots off from DFL, I remember.
Me and another guy we had a nice battle that final day for to not be DFL. But it was that same kind of mentality that I feel like I dug myself out of that hole. I remember I went home after final stage. I rested for a couple of days. I said, all right, let's get back to work. Let's put our best foot forward, just like I did in 2020, right when COVID was starting. I decided to recommit myself. I'd come too far to be frustrated and be down, after final stage, and was able to get, one of the best breaks in my career to get into the Great Abaco Classic in the Bahamas on a sponsor exemption, and just, was really, really fired up to go make the most of it. And I was able to, and was able to get to play the rest of the season after that. So just, it was just a huge, from 2020 on, just to recommit myself to all those good things that I was saying that are easy to forget about when you're at this level, when you're on your own. And just recommitted myself, and it thank goodness it all paid off. And we're still going now, and I have that same mentality every day that I wake up now. Even now that I've had some success, I see all the guys at my level, and they're really great guys that work really hard, and somehow you got to go out there and find a way to beat them. And that's a mindset and a focus that I'm never gonna let leave me. So
Yeah, for the listeners that don't know, you got the sponsors exemption into the Great Abaco,
mhm,
and you play probably the best golf of your life up to that point under the circumstances.
mhm,
You finished T9th, and you pretty much lock yourself up for the rest of the
mhm,
year. So I'd like to talk about the next three events after that Bahamas tournament,
mhm,
where I actually caddied for you, and I'd like to Daniel's laughing. I was just gonna say the first event that we had was in Lake Charles, Louisiana,
Mhm.
and on Tuesday night, I think it was, the tournament was hosted by a casino, and they had all the players out for a crawfish boil with unlimited beer and unlimited crawfish right next to a casino. And so I was like, I was a caddy, and I went over there, and I was expecting it to just kind of be caddies and a few players here and there, but I was really surprised to see that like over half the field was, in there drinking beer and gambling right before this tournament. But, you definitely weren't doing that. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on how hard it is week to week to avoid some of the partying or social interactions out there on tour that may end up hurting your game in the long run.
Yeah, yeah. Louisiana was a unique week. A lot of great food. Being at the casino, I mean, everybody's tempted to go in there and try their luck and have some fun. But you guys know me. Probably your viewers don't know me as well, but it's kind of in my nature to block everything out. People who know me wouldn't be surprised about that story. I'd say if anything, they would probably encourage me. Hey, it's okay to go play a couple hands of cards. It'll be all right. Like you know, loosen up a little bit. It'll be okay. But no, there's a lot of distractions and at the Corn Ferry level, the guys are very focused, very locked in. I think Cooper, what you probably saw was guys that have been grinding for a month and a half, and it's like, man, we got a night here. They're giving away free crawfish. I can have a beer. It's not the end of the world. So I think that's just that self management is really important at this level. It's you got to stay focused, and for the most part, almost everybody does. But there is a time and place to go, and to kick back and hang out with the guys and just be a regular person and let the stresses and the frustrations of the real world kind of slip away. But yeah, I think there's definitely an advantage. You hear stories about Tiger and his work ethic, and the guys who stay the most focused and who stay on the right path and don't get distracted. Those guys have an advantage. It's easier said than done. There's so much out there that can get in your way and distract you, but it's just about that self management and knowing when you just need to get to bed and when it's okay to go hang out with the guys for a couple hours. But for me, that's yeah, that was a good night, good opportunity, good night for me to get some rest and get to bed early.
As far as things go, though, that year you had status for this next like essentially 10 or 12 week run, and then after that, you know what happened. So you could end up back at first stage depending on how things went. So you're in for the reshuffle, and the next like 8 or so weeks, nothing bad happened per se. Make a cut here, miss a cut there, a little bit of back and forth, but you get to a few weeks before the end of the season, and you're at 119th on the points list. So that's outside looking
Mhm.
in. Tell us about how that felt like, but also what happened after that next tournament.
Yeah, so I played well in Knoxville early in the summer, and then I think that the very next week I'm in the top 10 going into the weekend in Chicago, and I really felt like I was about to kind of get on a nice little run. And it just wasn't in the cards. Kind of missed some opportunities. I felt like when I played not my best, I was getting really bad results, and when I was playing pretty well, I wasn't getting a lot out of it. Um, and the season, it's a long season, but time was kind of running out for me. Like you said, I was 119 on the points list late in the year. Um, but I never lost that good mindset of put my best foot forward, go out there, do the right things. I never got frustrated with my situation. I looked at every week as an opportunity. I was really excited to be there, and I never lost confidence. That was the biggest thing. I saw a lot of guys in my position that were phenomenal players maybe get a little bit frustrated with themselves, maybe get a little bit discouraged, and I knew that that was a big advantage for me if I could stay confident and stay positive. And I played really well in Springfield, Missouri, and kind of just had a little bit of a flat final round to finish 25th. But I knew I was like, man, I'm playing well, and and we only got 2 more weeks, but I had a good feeling about it. Went out to Utah, and it was just one of those weeks where shoot 64 in the practice round, go play off-site on Wednesday at another really good golf course, shoot 63, kind of got a little bit kind of off to a good start, but nothing crazy, open with 68, and then just kind of got it going, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I finally got myself in a position where I felt like I could win the tournament. And like I was mentioning earlier, from my college career and my junior career, I feel like if I'm in contention, I feel like I'm at my best and I'm most comfortable there. And just that being comfortable with trying to win a golf tournament finally, for the first time all year, I think really paid off for me. And I had a great final round in the Bahamas where I pushed it all the way up to fourth place with a couple holes left, and I really kind of fell on my sword there. Those last two holes, I really kind of goofed up the last two, and I remember I learned a lot from that. And I kind of told myself we're going to get back in this position, and we're going to be more prepared, and we're going to know what to expect, and we'll succeed next time. And that's exactly what I was thinking coming down the stretch in Utah. How everything happens for a reason, and how I was going to be prepared for the situation. And yeah, I was able to birdie three of my last four, made a nice putt on 18 in Utah, and get in there, and it's like, well, that it takes care of a lot of good stuff. Was then ended up getting inside the top 75, getting into Corn Ferry finals, and getting, most importantly, getting exempt for next season, because that's just taken such a burden off of me, and created such an awesome opportunity that I've never had to really prepare and be able to relax and get ready for a season. So just a great series of events for me this season.
I'd like to go back to some of the things that I noticed when I was on the bag early in the season for you. And that is something that we talked about, which is the increased level of structure that you get with the Corn Ferry Tour. And that would be, you get 3 practice rounds every week. You got registrations, you got players, meals at all times of the day. You got
Mhm,
equipment trucks with anything that you need. How do you balance taking advantage of all of those new things that are available to you
mhm,
and sticking with what got you there? Because it is, even though it is a higher level of structure and there's more things available to you, it is a change in routine
mhm.
compared to Q school or mini tour event.
Yeah, there's so much more at your fingertips at the Corn Ferry level. They give you all the tools and opportunities and resources to play great golf, and that's what I noticed early on in the season, and I wanted to take advantage of all those things. But like you said, it is a balancing act. You don't want to, you know, you don't need to be in the equipment van every week, you know, retooling the set. You don't need to be, you need to just do what, like you said, what got you there, and trust your game. And I think as the season went on, I kind of began to understand that, and kind of everybody gets in a nice rhythm with what they do, and getting a good routine. Um, but yeah, there's a lot going on, but there's you know, a lot of opportunity to really set yourself up for success. And that's something, you don't really have, until you get there. Like I said, the Canadian tour inside the ropes feels like a big event, but you get outside the ropes, you sign your card, and it's just a clubhouse and a few people walking around. At this level, you get that, those people around you with the equipment reps are so helpful out there. They've helped me a lot this year. You get the free meals, the player dining is always really really good. You can really take care of yourself, and that's an important part to playing well. And you know Corn Ferry Tour does a great job providing those amenities, and the sponsors of the events do a really good job too, and that really helps us just as players, have a better chance to play our best, and that's in everybody's best interest.
So we kind of glossed over how big of a deal it was and what exactly happened on that 16th hole. I think you made a 16-footer for birdie. It's not like we're talking about tap-ins here. It's 16-footer for birdie on that 16th hole. So that gets you in good position. And then 17th hole, you make a par. And at that point in time, leader was already in the clubhouse, 2 in front. So you knew that, okay, I'm not going to necessarily win it on the last hole. But you come down the last hole, and I don't know if you knew it, but commentators knew it. I knew it in my head. A birdie helps make sure you lock in that status, and you roll in a 20-footer, I think, on the last hole, something around that length to get yourself in, lock it up for the next year. That gets you into playoffs. Like that essentially like gives you a whole bunch of stability. One, in your head, what was going on in that moment? Did you know where you were? Because it sounds like a lot of people are like, I'm not looking at the scoreboard. I'm not looking at this. And for my interactions with you, that's never been something that has necessarily bothered you. And instead, more you've embraced it.
Yeah, I didn't. I did look at some scoreboards that day, but I felt like starting the day there was about 20 guys within 3 shots of the lead, and I felt like you had to go get a hot round going, and we'll see where we're at with the final few holes. And I played really well in the front nine. Started three back to start the day. I think I shoot 5 under on the front. But then I kind of cooled off. Par 10, bogeyed 11, par 12, 13, and 14. So, I knew there was still a lot to play for those last three, obviously, the last four, I mean. But I unfortunately, I felt like winning the tournament was maybe a little out of reach. Now, turns out it wasn't. There's a lot of really good players behind me. Um, that I felt like we're going to finish well and push the lead forward, and it turns out they never did. Andrew in the group ahead of me was lighting it up, and he ended up getting a 21 under, and nobody ever caught him. I really, when I was finishing up, I felt like even if I got to 21 under, I wasn't going to win. I felt like somebody was going to get lower than that, but that wasn't really what I was. That wasn't the foremost thought in my head. The biggest thing for me was we've got to play these last 4 or 5 holes as well as we possibly can. Every shot matters, whether that means we get to skip first stage next year, whether it means we secure our card for next year, or whether it means we win the tournament. Those were the four biggest holes of my career, of my season, and that's all I was thinking. I did, birdied 16, really really good birdie on 16, hard 17, and and I remember on 18 directly past the cup was the scoreboard when I was reading my putt. And I'm looking, I'm like, okay, well, I'm T4 right now, two back of the lead. So we can't win, but man, making this putt would go a long way. And I just, I hit a really bad wedge in there on 18. A good drive, really bad wedge. I think about that wedge pretty much every day when I'm on the range hitting wedges because I'd love to have that one back. But I walked up to that green, and this is something Coach Flynn always told me. He said, if you got to putt, you've still got a chance. And my dad always told me growing up, he said, you got to love putting. If you're on that green, you've got a chance. And it doesn't matter if it's 5 feet or 25 feet. If you make it, you make it. It counts the same. So that's the mentality I had. And it was just, it was kind of a great putt to have under pressure. It was a little bit downhill, breaking just a little bit right to left. And I saw the read early and I felt really good about it. And, from there, it's just about sticking to your routine and staying out of your own way and just not letting the moment dictate, what you're doing or what you're thinking. The pressure is there. I mean, it's, goes without saying, you can feel it, but you got to just, focused on my breathing, focused on, just hitting the best putt I could and being confident. Yeah, I hit a pretty perfect putt and read it right and got the speed right. It was a pretty awesome moment. I was just focused the whole, that back nine on, every shot matters. It was, if like I said, if it gets me to keep my card, if it gets me to win the tournament, it was just shoot the lowest score possible, and that's my whole golf career. That's all that it's about. It's what's the score that you can post. So
That's just a great mindset that you had. You weren't necessarily, you were mad about the wedge shot, but you were focused on it would be awesome to make this putt. I love putting, and you stepped up and you made a really big time putt. And listen to you talk about that is sounds like straight out of a Bob Rotella book, and that's actually a sports psychologist that you worked with.
mhm,
I'd like you to talk about some of the lessons that he taught you
mhm.
and how those lessons play out in your game today.
Yeah, I believe I went to see Dr. Rotella in 2018 or 2019, and that was such a great experience for me. We still talk some now. He's a great guy. He'll pick up the phone anytime, but he loves the game. He loves seeing guys, reach their potential, get better. And he just instilled in me that, I'm in control of how I handle situations and how I feel about, where I'm at and the work that I do. Things are going to go on around you. Good things are going to happen, bad things are going to happen, but can you do what you want to do and really be in control of yourself and your thoughts and your actions? And he just, that was a really, big turning point for me, just to know that, for example, on that last putt in Utah, obviously I'm nervous. Obviously there's so much on the line, but can I go through my routine? Can I read this putt? Can I hit this ball how I want to? And the situation can't dictate that, but how you act in that situation, because if it does, you're not gonna hit the shot that you want. So that was just a huge lesson for me. But he's just, he's worked with so many great players. The stories that he's told me, real life examples and real life, testimony to what good psychology and what good thinking can lead to. That was such a great experience to work with him. And I work with another coach now that I can see more regularly, and that's so helpful for me to talk through things and just to get things off my chest and to make sure that I'm continuing to progress and you know go about things and handle things and process things the right way. I think I would recommend that to any player that wants to be their best. Find somebody, and it doesn't. If it's a professional, that's great. If it's one of your coaches, if it's a grandparent, somebody. I wouldn't recommend your parents, but somebody that you trust, that knows the game, that knows you, that you can rely on to kind of give you some good feedback and good advice. I think that's just invaluable.
No, that's an important part of being a professional golfer, and essentially any role in life is having a team there. And you have a good team, have had a good team, and where you notice issues, you make sure that those issues are corrected. When it comes to people on your team and working on your golf swing in particular, what are some of the things? Because at every level, your golf swing changes some, but your DNA for the most part stays the same. Like it's hard to change your entire DNA or everything about your golf swing and still play at a high level, because a lot of what playing golf at a high level is refining skill, and you're used to these motor patterns. So if you change these motor patterns drastically, it'll affect your golf game drastically. And once you start seeing proof of concept, like, hey, I'm out here, I can play out here, I've known I could play out here, but it's not a golf swing issue necessarily for me out here. I'm not necessarily getting uh, capped out of my potential. What do you look at in your golf swing, and what do you work on with your coaches to make sure that you're improving, you're finding ways to improve, but you're not reinventing the wheel, you're not putting yourself out of your game, especially when you're trying to travel and play good golf?
Yeah, I think that proof of concept idea that you mentioned is a big part of it for me now. Having played with some of the best players in the world and seeing that everybody does some unique things and everybody does it a little bit differently, and nobody's got a perfect game. Oftentimes, the guys that chase perfect, kind of get lost a little bit. And maybe for a while, maybe at times as a professional, I've chased something that maybe I don't do naturally. So really, what I work on now is let's look at when I'm hitting the ball really well, when I'm swinging my best. What does it look like? What are kind of the things that are the indicators there? What are the things that we can keep an eye on that we see when I'm playing my best? So and it may not be textbook perfect golf fundamentals, but it's my, like you said, my DNA. It's what I do well. There's a maturity aspect there. You have to figure out, hey, this works for me. It may not be perfect, but this is what I do, and this is what I have to do if I want to be my best. There's very few players on the PGA Tour now with perfect golf swings. You've got a lot of unique things going on, but they know what they're doing. They trust their coaching. They're comfortable with who they are and how they get it done. And I think for me, being a little bit more mature now, being 28 years old, having played at a high level, seeing a lot of the guys out there, is just kind of affirmed that with me, that I got to just figure out what works best for me. What do I do really well, and just stick to that. There's always constant little improvements that we're trying to make, and I won't get into my swing too technically here, but there's always little things I'm trying to work on. But for me now, especially now in the off season, it's what do I do really well, and how do we maximize that, and make sure I stick with what I know and what I do well.
That's beautiful. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And if you've listened to us, which I know you have, you know that the last question we ask every guest is, if you could go back to yourself as a junior golfer and tell yourself one thing, what would that one thing be?
I'd tell them a lot. Um, yeah, as a junior golfer, I think just get a plan and stick to it. Never lose that love for the game. Find some good coaches that you really believe in, and just keep working hard. I mean, there's no substitute for hard work. You're going to have highs, you're going to have lows, but just stick with it. If you really believe you can do it, you can. Golf's an amazing game, and it's meant to be enjoyed. It's easy to take it too seriously and to get hung up on the frustrating times, but just stick with it, work hard, trust your coaches, and have fun with it.
Beautiful. We appreciate it. If people want to find you on social media, reach out to you, ask you questions, where should they do that?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Ashton Van Horn. No spaces, no underscores or anything. Trying to be a little bit more active there. We'll see. It's kind of tough for me.
Thanks for joining us today. Please do us a big favor and like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts so we can help others learn how to play better tournament golf. You can find us online at thetournamentcode.com, on Instagram at thetournamentcode, and on Twitter at tournamentcode. As always, feel free to reach out to us at those places or email us at daniel@thetournamentcode.com and cooper@thetournamentcode.com. We hope you join us as we continue to dive deeper into what it takes to play elite tournament golf.